that way.
And by the way, this is the 8th of these sessions that we've held, each one on a different topic.
Cool. So I'm going to start sharing screen. There we go. All right. And so I'm just going to start off really broad and just show you some of our, here's our featured flows on our website. So this is just on a.flow.gl. And so we just have a wide variety of different, examples here. So you can always go in and check some of these out, make copies of them and kind of dive into exactly how it was constructed and kind of, we call it reverse engineer some of these flows. So I'm going to go ahead and create a flow just to give you, an example of what, your blank template looks like. And also feel free to stop me at any time if you have any questions. So I'm going to do just a really quick build of a typical data story that we use in Flow. And then I'll explain exactly the narration and different types of things you can do to really add into your data story. So I'm just going to do a quick couple of steps. I'm going to use a data source from our library, a life expectancy is the kind of data story that I'm going to tell. So we just always start here with a bunch of random dots. So I will go ahead and add some color to that really quick, just color by country. And then let me add a step. And then I'm going to, so our flows are comprised of different steps that you kind of step through, akin to a PowerPoint. So that's kind of how we do our storytelling. And it helps to really build upon the data and wrap your head around a mental model. So I'm going to make a scatter plot now. And there I'm just going to show year on the width axis and then on the height axis, life expectancy. So you can kind of just start to see here, from 1860 to now, life expectancy is increasing. So I'm just going to go ahead and create another quick step. And then I'm just going to add a depth axis here so we can throw things into 3D and just kind of group these by country. So now you can really see, each country is a line here, and I'll just add a little connection line just so that way we can, we're going to do connections when column values match according to country. So then it really draws in the lines and you can see where some of these dips occur here in, some in 1910 or so. So this is kind of what our data story looks like so far. So I'll just step through it really quick. We're starting with the random dots. And then we kind of throw things into this flat chart to show the story of how life expectancy has increased, and then throwing it out into 3D space. And what I'm going to do here is just rotate this camera a little bit and then set that camera. And then maybe if we add one more step here and then just zoom in to show this dip here around 1910. Okay. So now let's get into the subject of today's training specifically, which is narration. So here under settings, there's a little option for audio. And here you can create a new audio file and it says narration here. And basically what you can do is, whether it be, on a program on your computer, we like to use a program called Loom that records, you can record, a little bit of video and audio, but you can also do it on your phone too. Just your little voice recording app and just record, a little bit of narration of yourself telling the story. And then you can upload that here. So another option, if you don't want to, put your own audio into that, would be under step details. There's this option that says show step overlays while in meetings and in the editor. So then this little black box appears. What you can do is in here start with, okay, so here are all of the dots. Life expectancy data. And so then that'll come up here. And when you go into your present mode, that'll be here, and it can be different for every step. So you can kind of add some narrative text there. I will say sometimes what I do is just add a little bit of a text box, to kind of describe some of these things as well. And these are really good for, different kind of call out things about specific dots, or you can even add an annotation line. So if you want to highlight a specific point, like how we were talking about here, this dip here, if we added this text object, let me move this stuff out of the way. And so this is the object's timeline. So you can kind of see what objects are, visible on each step. So right now we made that text object, but we can't see it on this step. So what we can do is just either click this eye icon or double click this square, and then this text object will become visible again. So I'm just going to bring it down a little bit so we can see it. And this is another great way to add kind of a different level of storytelling to your narrative. So we can also add an annotation line here. So if we click on that and select that dot to annotate, it'll draw a line for us automatically to show, we can right here, this is when the Spanish flu happened. So when we, are talking about it, it kind of has some context there. Let me see, there's something else that we can do, kind of this tool that we have up here in the top right corner. Visualize data is what I'm in right now, the kind of mode. But say, this is more, really hands-on with your data experts, kind of like building the visualizations. That being said, of course, everybody can do it. With just a little bit of learning and practice. But you can go into this create story mode. Say you're going to pass it off to someone that's more of a presenter role, and they just need to edit some of the story aspects. So here you can add new text objects, change the camera angle, and add new steps. So that's kind of more of the storytelling focused side of things that you could do, where we really hone that in. Something here that's important to stories and kind of adding different story aspects is the camera position preview. So if you toggle that on, you could see these little camera icons pop up. So that'll show you where exactly, this is the step right here. So this is step 1 and 2, step 3, and step 4, where your camera angles are. So you can always click here and see, okay, that's the view I have when I'm on step 3. This is the view I have when I'm on step 4. So you can.
Sarah, I'm going to interrupt you real quick. I'm just going to start a breakout room here. So just for anyone, so you are aware, I'm just going to do that real quick. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Michael. So you can kind of, if you want your camera angle to be in the same spot, for different steps, or go back and forth, that can be really helpful as well. And then another thing I'll say, is that there's a variety of ways that we use this tool in terms of, presenting. Sometimes we will just be sharing screen on a Zoom meeting. And that's, where this meeting can come into place. That's really helpful here. So I will make sure these sharing permissions are on. So I'm going to enable this as a public link. And then what I'm going to do is actually invite you all to this flow that I just built. So I'm going to go ahead and click this meet button and then start a new meeting. And then I'm going to click meeting again and share this with you in the chat. All right. So that's shared. So you guys can just click that link and then you'll be thrown in here. So this is kind of how we typically will do, a Zoom meeting or, any kind of remote collaboration where we want to tell a data story. So we've had as many as, 50 I think even more now, people in a meeting at the same time. So you get your little like laser pointer and, you can click on dots. I haven't added any interactivity to these dots, but if I did, you could click on a dot and see a pop-up would appear with, exactly what data was in that information. So if I go forward a step, it should take you with me. So, it's something that you could see either by looking at my screen or, looking at your own screen and really moving the camera around and zooming into the things that you want to focus on. And I can see your little avatar and laser pointer as well. So it's kind of cool in that way. If you had a question about something, you could point to that specific part of the chart and I'd be able to see what you were talking about. So that's another way to tell a story. As well as this same URL that I shared with you, or the not the meeting URL, but the static URL. You could share and tell that story on your phone, which Michael does on his TikTok in AR mode, which it's the same link for everything. So on your phone, there'll be a little button that says AR, and then that just throws your content into your world. As well as another way that people like to tell stories is in headset. So in VR headset, you can use this link in the browser, and that's where the audio narration piece becomes really helpful, because if you're just stepping through this and you're immersed, in this world of data, but it seems actually really quiet. So having that audio narration piece can be really helpful when you're, in VR as well. But I'm going to pause for any specific questions that anybody has, just to kind of see where we're at with things, or, if there's anything that, you'd like me to dive in deeper to.
I got a real quick question, Sierra. Can you put queryability onto the step number 3 that we're looking at right now? Just a little pop-up, so then when we click on a dot, we can see what's behind the dot.
Sure. Let me go back into visualize data. So you will have to do a refresh once I do this, but I'll let you know when it's when it's good to do. And I will say, if you're still looking at my screen, something that's important for VR and AR is just 3D text. And then if you're building a flow for flat screens, using overlay text is good. But I tend to go with 3D text. So let me just add maybe life expectancy in country and year, just so you can see that they're different years. All right. I'm adding some inters after my things, so that way formatting looks nice. We can see now, oh, that dot was 2006 in Haiti and the life expectancy was 60 years. So I'm going to go and add this in to a couple other steps. Year, country, life expectancy. All right, almost done. Country, life expectancy. All right, I've done a save, so you should be able to refresh. Are you all still in that meeting?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just.
So if I just refresh my browser, that's all I need to do here. Okay.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. Yeah, great. Okay. I am now able to click on the dot and see what it is. And you've done a 3D text, 3D text pop-up.
Yes. Great. Any other questions for me?
Yeah, Sierra, you want to give us a real quick instruction on how we as guests in this meeting can maneuver the screen?
Yeah, so it looks like you guys have a pretty good handle on it, but basically you would just click anywhere in the space and drag either left or right or up or down, even to just 360 degrees to really move around and navigate. And you can use your scroll wheel to kind of zoom in and zoom out there.
Yeah, so this is a great collaborative tool to have a group in discussing some topic of mutual interest where everybody can kind of explore the areas that's of most interest to them and contribute to the collaborative discussion.
Yeah, this is really cool. Here I had 2 quick questions. So Michael was saying that like you learned this incredibly quickly. Is there like I guess there's like a learning space on the website with video tutorials? Is there documentation? Like what does that look like, I guess, when you were learning this?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was learning it, it was just kind of there was a couple YouTube videos, and Bill had just created a quick guide, which was like a Word document that I used to kind of figure out some helpful tips. Since then, I will actually take you through our help documentation really quick, just so that way you can get an idea of what's out there. So on our main page on a.flow.gl, there's a documentation button. So if you click that, that'll take you to our help center. So we have this big search box in the middle where you can search for anything that you're having trouble with trying to figure out. Say, for example, you want to build a map. You can just search map. And then, there'll be a couple of different articles that pop up, or you can even hit enter and things will come up for that. So I've made quite a few different videos, as well as just like text documentation for how to build some of these things. We're always constantly updating and refreshing the product, so some of the user interface may look a little bit different, but it's most of the same settings and things like that.
Yeah.
Well as, so we have videos here, an FAQ, and then on our YouTube channel, we have let me see, we have a list of playlists. I'm trying to figure out where I would find that. Maybe if I just go to our channel. Oh yeah, here in playlists, we have all of our
Cool.
previous training sessions. So like all versions of these, we do, record them and then upload them here with a, usually it has the
cloud.
What's it called? A table of contents too. So you can like go specifically to certain things that you care about. But yeah, so these are all of our full length trainings. And as we continue to do more of these, we will upload those recordings.
Wow, cool. Thank you. Yeah, that's great. I had just one other small question. So you don't need a headset, right?
Absolutely not.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. So we like to say like the analogy of, we'll lead the horse to water, but we're not going to dunk its head in. We're not going to force you to go into VR or anything like that. So we try to also make sure that you can get an idea of the 3Dness with a flat screen, So that's kind of the idea of like moving things around and showcasing motion. So even in some of our our like phone videos that we do, just recording the screen on our phone where it's flat, we just show some of the motion to kind of give the brain the idea of the 3Dness in the space.
Gotcha. Cool. Thanks so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, so on this session, we're kind of focused on the topic of narration and how to deliver a data story. Are there any other, let's see, well, first of all, Sarah, is there anything else you had to discuss on that particular topic?
I don't think so. It's kind of, I guess maybe just if anybody wanted to talk about, typical like story arc, I'm sure as a professor, you're very familiar with that aspect of things and in terms of writing and things like that. So maybe I'm not
this is amazing actually, because I'm actually like my sort of passion project and a lot of my grant work is towards very specifically telling data narratives. Like, and we're trying to start like a data narrative institute that's going to link between our business writing department and our data science department. So yeah, like, I guess my question would be to you guys within the tool, it seems like you do already, right? Like you sort of marry together when you're doing your training, the sort of technical side of it, and then also the rhetorical moves, right? That sort of go into telling the story. So is there like specific documentation, I guess, that you have that specifically covers that, or is that coming, or?
Yeah, it's always a work in progress for sure.
Yeah, I know you guys are, yeah, you're pretty new. So yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, we need to put some more content out there on data storytelling specifically, using Flow. But I think that we found that that's definitely our niche or our specific, core value is, there's so many data visualization tools. And they're all great in their own ways, but what Flow I think really brings is the idea of stepping through and like building upon layer after layer of information and using it to tell a story, because it is kind of it's a step-by-step thing in a way that a story is too, rather than just being a website with a dashboard, or scrolly telling is also really big, but that's still kind of like a user-led story. Whereas this can be a user-led story depending on how you look at it, but we kind of like to put emphasis on maybe having a narrative or some text that really helps guide the user through.
Yeah, no, that's great. And yeah, because I'd say like my biggest frustration with say like a company like Tableau, right? It's like they have all this amazing visualization functionality and they have the vizzes of the day and all these things, but then like you look at it and it's just a dashboard, it's like there's no like linear narrative that sort of helps, right? Like what you're saying, like builds in an arc, right? A story arc, like dramatizes what's happening. You're just there kind of like clicking around. So this is great. This is incredible. Really cool.
Yeah, and out on our featured flows page, where I sent you a link and Sierra told you where it was, right there. If you go out and cruise around here, there's about 25 flows. Each one tells a different story. They're all interesting. They've all got different types of visualizations and narratives. Some of them have the narrative that are built right into the flow. I mean, we've taken some time to do that. Sierra, do you want to bring up the Texas Power, or bring up anyone you want, but the Texas Power, that one particularly has a strong narrative component to it. On this one, this is one that Michael built, and what he did, there was a big power outage in Texas a little bit more than a year ago, where they almost lost their entire power grid.
I remember.
Yeah, and this flow is kind of a recap of what happened there. It's actually quite a stirring story, and
wow,
kind of disaster was narrowly averted. But on this particular flow, as you can see on this first step, Michael has set the stage for this story with about 6 or 7 lines of text. So on this one, you can actually step through this story and see how everything unfolded. And what he's doing is he's watching 4 curves concurrently. He's watching the temperature, he's watching demand for power, electricity, he's watching supply, and he's watching the frequency at which the power is being delivered on the grid. And it turned out that was the most important one, because if you're probably familiar with 60 cycles a second, or 60 hertz is the frequency of normal house power. But if that power frequency drops below, I think 59.4 cycles, which sounds like a minor deviation, but it's really major, because if it drops below that for like 10 minutes or 6 minutes or whatever, all the motors and things start to fail. So it's a real disaster. So these power grids have automated shutoffs. And Texas came within about 3 minutes of having their whole grid go down due to the automated shut off to save all the generators and motors that were attached to the power grid. So really that's my favorite flow, I think, in terms of being able to read the narrative and just follow what happened here.
Well, and Sierra, can you share that link in the chat? Will I be able to take a peek at that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I already shared the link
Awesome.
to
Wow,
the
thank
feature
you.
flows page.
Oh,
So
you did?
you
Okay,
you can
great.
find all 25 feature flows right at that spot.
Yeah, I mean, Bill, I'm right there with you. I think that's really powerful. Yeah, I have a student right now who's working on this this project where they're telling a data narrative specifically about the food shortage that's happening right now, and they're referring to it in the data, sort of the data way as the calorie shortage. And there's a lot of research that points to when when a certain number of calories gets pulled out of like the food production line globally, that's when conflict begins, right? Like the last time we were dipping towards this level of lack of calories was when the Arab Spring happened, right? So yeah, no, this is amazing. This is really cool. Sorry, I'm like geeking out on the on the call. Sorry.
Yeah. Maybe
really
we can take these exact charts and repurpose them to tell that story.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I know. Like it's all just like structurally, it's also just like beautiful and vivid too. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah,
Really cool.
that curve on the right might be the calorie versus calorie,
Yeah.
average calorie consumption versus time or something.
Oh, yeah. And actually, that was one of my next questions. So once you make something like this, can you like copy it as a template and then pull? You can. Yes. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
And you can honestly copy this flow specifically. So if I were to click edit, when you click it, it would probably prompt you for this. But if not, basically you can go in and just do a save as, right? And so then it saves a copy into your flow directory. And then you can go in here and obviously there's a lot going on. But so each, big yellow line here is a swarm. And then there's, some different connections, some labels, some area charts happening. And then on each step, we have these, all the different swarms because they're all visible here. Some different other text objects, things like that. But you can really go into the swarms and see, okay, for this one, it's a scatter plot with the date and if it's above or below freezing. And you can actually go into the data. If you click edit, it'll bring up what does this data look like, so what are the type of columns involved and
Wow.
how is it structured, how is it formatted.
Yeah.
So there's a lot you can tell from reverse engineering, we like
Right.
to say. I'll show one more example that has a good storyline that I really like. This was actually built by one of our customers, and he added some audio narration in here as well. So I'll put that link into the chat. So he has a button here where you can click play audio. I'll do it just for the first step so you can kind of hear how he oriented
How
that.
big is big tech?
And so then when you go forward, some of these will play.
Each point represents a company from the S&P 500. You can click on them to find out their market cap. Here, each point represents $1 billion. Pivot your camera to the right to see some recognizable S&P companies and their market caps.
And we really like the way that he kind of set this up as an interactive tool and it really guided you through the story.
Yeah.
These massive companies are dwarfed by big tech.
Oh, yeah. That's great.
This next one is one of my very favorite visualizations.
Uh-huh.
It'll be a little jumpy on Zoom, but if you play this yourself, you get a nice smooth.
That's great. Yeah, that's very fun.
Yeah, it's like using the scale and the camera to really emphasize the point.
Since their beginning, the Big Five have acquired over 800 companies. Click on points to find out more about them.
That's so fun. Yeah.
And so the whole world is being absorbed by these 5 companies.
Right.
Yeah. He did a great
As a
job.
final stat, the top 5 companies are worth the same amount as the bottom 385 companies of the S&P 500. How long will big tech continue to dominate? This flow was made by Get Real. I've been Tyler. Thanks for viewing.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so in this one, he used very bold graphics and bold colors, and this is an very interesting flow, and he used the narration, I think, to very good effect. It was very quick. He didn't get bogged down in the narration at all, but he kind of gave you, what he thought you might be interested in clicking through this flow, what to do.
Right. Yeah, that's really cool. So, so he could, I'm assuming, right, he can make this like publicly accessible, and then like if I shared this with like my classroom, they would be able to move around in it and sort of live in it. Wow,
Yeah.
that's great. Cool.
Yeah,
you can link and share however you want.
Wow. Yeah, that's so fun.
Yeah, so of these 25 flows, this one by Tyler, we thought highly enough where we thought this would just be a great featured flow. So his company was willing to do that. And there's another one in there from somebody else from the same company. So, as our customers generate flows, if they're interested in having them on our featured flow list, we're always interested in talking with them. And we have quite an extensive QA process that we go through on that.
Sure.
So, Tyler did maybe 2 or 3 revisions, but this was far enough along where actually the kinds of revisions that Sierra and I asked him to do were pretty light, actually.
Right.
So, yeah. So anyway, our concept here is to share these flows with the world, and, hopefully the world will over time become much better at data storytelling. Right.
Yeah. And sorry, Sam, I know I'm asking like a million questions. If you have any, just dive right in. My last question is, Stephen actually asked this. So the flows live on your cloud, I'm guessing, or in your website, because they have to stay there, I'm assuming, right?
You can also embed. So if I share screen back really quick, in the editor, let me just go back because I'm in a meeting now. You can go into present and then go ahead and refresh. So in the editor, there is an option here for when you go into share, you can click get embed code, and you can just copy that and embed it in whatever website you choose. So the URL will still be like from our, site, but when you embed it on another website, then you can direct people to that instead.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, so this is a software as a service kind of offering.
Right.
So everything resides in the cloud. We use Amazon Web Services as our delivery vehicle.
Cool.
Our hosting vehicle. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, so there's lots to talk about. And this is a large and interesting and very rapidly evolving product. So we pride ourselves in the rapidity at which we've been putting features into this product, especially since last July or so.
Yeah, no, this is really cool. Thanks so much.
Yeah, a lot more to come.
Thanks for working so hard.
Well, just to say as well, thanks very much for showing us this. I really love the last visualization. And I just had a quick question in terms of the objects that were used in that visualization. So you had the Google logo, you had the Apple logo, etc. Would you be able to use any other kind of image objects? So I'll give you an example. So we're looking at emotions and the way that people kind of express their emotion or sentiment towards different vaccines. So would we, for example, be able to have objects in the form of emojis that are shared?
Yeah, definitely. That would be really cool. You can add any kind of images that you want. So we have with those, they had a transparent background. So that kind of helped them look less, flat, like just a square image on the screen. But yeah, you can add any kind of images you want. You can also add 3D models. So I don't know if anyone's already created, 3D emojis, but you could always put those in as well.
That's really cool.
Did
And
you-
then, yeah,
Oh,
go
go ahead, Sam, sorry.
I was just going to say, I noticed in that last visualization that there were different types of graphs. So I think you had a map, you had a bar graph, you had an area graph. So is that possible that you can put different things? So if we're talking about vaccine hesitancy in Brazil versus the UK, then you could have perhaps different globes with different kind of images on them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a lot of different visualization types, and they're ever growing, ever expanding. But let me just actually take you through really quick before we wrap up our flow about flow, which has some different examples here of flows that you can do. So you can, throw things on a globe. Here the globe is invisible. You can do bar charts in a circle. You can do regular bar charts in a line as well. This is kind of talking about our use case as a data storytelling tool, but you can have dots in any kind of random assortment that you want. So here, we've plotted them on a map talking about election results, and you can kind of throw them, into 3D space from the map as well to show an additional dimension. Here, the number of voters in a certain county. And then you can add colorizations to show even another dimension of that ratio of voters. This is talking about a little bit about our different options in terms of story creator and how we share those things. We do have a force directed graph as well. So these are for our showing how COVID spreads. So this is, how we thought COVID spread, and then on the left is how it actually spread more in a clustered fashion. And then, our typical, 3D scatter plot. So there's lots of different options that we have for chart types.
That's brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
And in the chat, I just sent you my email address in case you wanted to contact us for additional information or whatever, follow through. So feel free to contact me anytime if you wish.
Yeah, and I will say too, on that help documentation, let me return back to it really quick. If you're in Flow and for some reason you find something that's a bug, or you think there's a new feature that we should add, there's this submit a request button that you can click on, and that'll send a ping right to us, where we're updated on everything. So that's also a resource for you as well.
Oh, great! Nice seeing you all here. And we hold these sessions twice a week, and we've got about 25 topics lined up, Sarah. So by the time we're finished with this cycle, we will have covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Any
Yeah,
last
thank you so much.
Okay.
Okay. Hey, great. Have a good rest of the day, everybody.
Thanks so much, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you very much. I apologize for turning up late, but I'll be at another one.
Oh, Jimmy. Yeah, Jimmy. Whereabouts are you from?
I'm usually based out of the United Arab Emirates. I'm traveling at the moment, but that's from Dubai, I'd say.
Okay.
From that point of view.
Report it, and we'll send out the next week when we send out our new training topics. We'll include a link to all of our videos, so you'll be able to watch this in its entirety.
Perfect. Okay, great. So these are going up on the, because I've seen there's starting to be quite a few new videos on your YouTube channel. Is that okay? All right, great. So I'll go look at some of the backlog, and maybe I'll see if I can, audit a few of the future ones.
Sounds good.
Perfect. Great. Hey, nice seeing you all. Have a good rest of the day and a good upcoming weekend.